Hello everyone, welcome to our course International Organization and Global Governance, Chapter 1, International Organization and Global Governance. Let's start with learning objectives. At the end of this chapter, you will be able to define the concepts of international organizations and global governance. You can classify international organizations. You can also recount the basic functions of international organizations. You can comprehend the main theoretical approaches to international organizations. Finally, you can summarize the debate on Universalism and Regionalism. This chapter includes 5 main titles. So the first title focuses on defining the concepts of international organizations and global governance. The second one discusses the classification of international organizations. The third one examines functions of international organizations. The fourth deals with the international relations theories and international organizations. And finally, the final title focuses on the debate between universalism and regionalism. So, when we focus on the concept of international organization and global governance, the historical roots of international organizations goes back to the Peace of Westphalia, which was considered as the start of the modern international system. And also we know that the Concert of Europe, which was created after the Vienna Congress, also provided a very convenient environment for the proliferation of new international organizations in the 19th century. But the first permanent international organization, which was directly deal with the international peace and security, was the League of Nations. It was established after the end of the First World War. And also we know that in addition to League of Nations, International Labor Union and some other humanitarian organizations were also established after the First World War. The second significant universal international organization is the United Nations. It was established after the end of the Second World War. And United Nations is responsible, among other things, is responsible for the maintenance of international peace and security. Finally, we know that globalization in the 20th century created a very, very convenient environment for the spread of international organizations across the globe. So, what is an international organization? First of all, international organizations are institutional structures. They foster international cooperation among different types of actors, including states, in different fields, from security to law, from economic issues to social fields. They must include at least three or more states if these are intergovernmental organizations. And also, we know that they create rules to regulate relations between states. We have another important concept in this book, which is global governance. So global governance is defined as the systems of rules to have a transnational control over all levels of human activity. It involves different types of actors, including multinational corporations, international organizations, NGOs, citizens movements, global mass media, global capital markets, and also states and individuals. The second topic in this first chapter is the classification of international organizations. So, international organizations are categorized based on mainly 3 criteria. The first criteria is about their membership. So, according to this membership criteria, international organizations are divided into different groups. For instance, the first type of international organization can be intergovernmental organizations. Intergovernmental organizations only include members from governments, from states. So, for instance, non-governmental organizations or other non-state actors cannot be member of intergovernmental organizations. Second type of international organization is international non-governmental organizations. In this type, the members of this type of organizations are generally local NGOs or other non-state actors. And also we have transnational organizations. This is another type. In transnational organizations, at least one of the members should be non-state actor. So these include both states and non-state actors, both states and non-governmental actors. And finally, there is another distinction between regional organizations and global universal organizations. Regional organizations are confined to specific regions, such as European Union. So members of these type of organizations are located in a particular regions, for instance, African Union or European Union. But global organizations are not confined, are not limited to a specific region. They have members from all over the world. For instance, United Nations. So almost all nation states are member states of United Nations. So that's why we define United Nations as a global universal type of organizations. There is another criterion regarding the classification of international organizations. These are based on aims and their activities. So there are some international organizations which work in the field of high politics, such as international order, security, and peace. We can, for instance, think of NATO. NATO is an international organization. It's a military alliance, and it works in the field of security. So it's a high politics international organization. Also, United Nations. It is a high politics international organization. But on the other side, there are low politics international organizations which focus on technical, economic, and cultural issues. For instance, like Greenpeace, or we can consider, for instance, like UNICEF, working in the field of children. So these are much more technical and low politic issues. There's another criterion, which is the structure of international organizations. We know that some international organizations have a complex organizational structure. For instance, again, United Nations. It has headquarters in New York and also regional office in different parts of the world. Also, it has a very complex bureaucratic structure, civil servant structure. So member states have some sort of roles in different organs of the United Nations. So we can consider that United Nations as an example of this complex organizational structure, international organization. But on the other hand, there are some international organizations with a simple and small organizational structure. They have only one secretary and one center or one office. So let's move to the functions of international organizations. What are the functions of international, or the main functions of international organizations? The first function of international organization is considered articulation and aggregation. According to this function, international organizations have the ability to bring together different local or national or even international actors focusing on similar issues. Also, international organization can create new norms and regarding different aspects of human lives. For instance, we can consider the UN role in creating human rights. Another function of international organizations is recruitment. So this means that international organizations help new actors be member of the international community. Also, international organizations play roles in socialization of actors. So it's and states. So it means that they teach states, or they help in their learning process of international values. We know that international organizations also take on some significant roles in making rules and in application of the rules, in abdication of the rules. And finally, international organizations play some sort of functions in exchanging information and in operational activities. As for the international relations theories and international organizations, maybe we can divide how mainstream theories approach the international organization, and then how critical theories approach the international organizations, and finally how specific theories approach the international organizations. Start with realism. Realism, in fact, attributes secondary roles to international organizations. They accept their existence, but they consider international organizations as a means for states to achieve and maximize their interests and goals. On the other hand, liberalism attributes a greater importance to international organizations. For liberalism, international organizations facilitating cooperation among states. So they are the means of international cooperation. As for critical theories, we can divide them into four different branches. For instance, starting with Marxism. Marxism considers international organizations as tools of domination and exploitation of rich capitalist states, and they also consider that international organizations divide or create some sort of distinction between the core states and periphery states. On the other hand, constructivism, for instance, consider that international organizations are not some sort of tools that states can use. They are also willful actors of their own accord. So this is important. Feminism focuses the gender issues or gender aspects of international organizations, the role of women in international organizations, and green theory mostly emphasizes the ecological issues and role of international organization in environmental issues. Another set of theories regarding the international organizations are integration theories. So the first one is the federalism. Federalism argues that international organizations should have a supranational character, which bring a good global governance. And also, there are two important integration theories. The first one is functionalism and neo-functionalism. For functionalism, they focus on the functions of international organizations. So they argue that international organizations are important because they fulfill some significant economic, social, and cultural functions which bring cooperation and peace. Neo-functional theory, which is based on functionalism as well, was developed to analyze the regional integration and much more particularly the European integration. And they points out that the spillover, the concept of spillover, which means that integration starts in one field, then spill over to other fields. For instance, integration can start in, for instance, like the economic sector, but then it can move towards military or political fields as well. So another group of significant integration theories are intergovernmentalism and liberal intergovernmentalism. Intergovernmentalism underlines the decisive role of national politics and national governments. So it's quite different from federalism and functionalism. And also liberal intergovernmentalism focus on the role of nation states in creating and sustaining international organizations. Finally, regarding universalism versus regionalism, universalism gives priority to general rules applying equally to all persons, and they reject or universalism rejects particularistic preferences in most spheres. According to universalism, core universal values should be shared at international level. So they emphasize, or this concept emphasizes the multilateralism. So we know that League of Nations and United Nations, these are international organizations which were created on the basis of universalism. Regionalism, on the other hand, a theory and practice of regional integration, but it is not some sort of alternative to universalism. It is kind of a supplement of global and universal integration processes. So we should not consider that these two concepts are rival concepts. and they particularly, regionalism particularly gained more prominence after the Second World War, after 1945, with the creation of regional integrations or regional organizations such as European Union again. So let's summarize the topics in this very first chapter of International Organization and Global Governance. First, this chapter focuses on defining concepts of international organization and global governance. Second, it discusses the classification of international organizations. Then we also consider functions of international organizations. And finally, we discusses how international relation theories approach to international organizations. Finally, we have seen the debates between universalism and regionalism. Thank you very much, but I should remind you that this is not the primary source of your learning material. So please go and read your book very closely. Also, please consult with other teaching materials that you can find on Anadolu E-Kampüs. Thank you very much.